The nightclubs, such as the Elks, the 707 Club, and the Sportsman's Club, were the pulse of the black community. The churches were the soul. On Friday and Saturday nights, everyone got down, got funky, and got loose. But on Sunday morning, those same people were in the pews praying to make it safely through to the next weekend. Some of the best bands in the area played at the Sportsman's Club, including the Vista Tones, Little Binky and the Flamingos, the Dynatones, and the Jivers. There was an abundant flow of young talent, and fortunately, the clubs provided an outlet for honoring that talent. And if that wasn't enough, such big-name performers as James Brown, Jackie Wilson, and Roy C. also came to town to excite and entertain the crowd. Indeed, on the weekend nights, the joints were surely jumping. But on Sunday morning, hungover or not, we were ushering in church members, settling into our respective pews, or harmonizing in the choir stands. Whether in need of stress relief or spiritual nourishment, Fifth Street was exactly what the doctor ordered. Now, as with anything involving humans, there are always varying perspectives, and Fifth Street was no different. This week's episode remembers Weekends Up on the Block.
Well, I'd already heard of Fifth Street as a kid. Initially, we started going up as kids to the black-owned Harrison Theater, and it only cost about 9 cents to see a movie, and my aunt would get me and my cousins, and that was my first contact with Fifth Street, was just going to the theater right there up on near Fifth and Jackson. But as I became a teenager and did a little sipping, and I remember back then your parents could let you drink a little bit, but not now. And I think they were seeing because I drank as much as I had bragged that I could drink. So I was drinking, and I was guzzling it. And the next thing I know, I just walked out the door and started walking from over on 14th and Monroe, and I ended up on Fifth Street at the Sportsman Club. So I was just a teenager. I didn't know I could dance until I got into Sportsman. So I was up there, and then the next thing I know, I was frequent. They had a lot of what we call, I'm not going to call them bootlegging joints, we could maybe nip joints. It was a lot of black entrepreneurs that were making a living, jacking up the price on what they're called distillery whiskey. They buy it at the liquor store, jack up the price, or either get corn liquor. So this was my first introduction to alcohol and dancing and, being a teenager and things like that. And I started frequenting the club, and they had a lot of clubs all up and down both sides of Fifth Street. It was dancing mainly up to Sportsman and Elks. And the Fifth Street corridor on either side of Fifth Street was a lot of nip joints where people were making their money either cutting the gambling games. It was a lot of gambling, or either it was a lot of liquor store. So I started drinking then, and I didn't know I was going to become hooked on drinking, but that's where the drinks were. So a lot of people would come up there on payday on the weekends and things like that, but they were open during the week. I'd be up there during the week.
So you drank weekends, weekdays?
Yeah, I was up there sometime all night just in the bootlegging joint. I'd come out, going at night. When I come out, it would be daylight. Everybody been there listening to music, drinking and having a jovial old time. So, I was really attracted to that as a teenager.
What were some of the most popular juke joints or bars?
Well, I don't want to really call my old friend's name, but I knew them all. So anybody sold in liquor, I knew who they were. But I had my favorite one down on Jackson Street. They had one up on Fifth Street at one time, and I thought it was a legal bar. When I went in there, they had a band in there, had big murals, bars. Everybody was wearing waitress jackets. But I was also in there when they raided that spot. So every time, just before Christmas, the police would raid the bootleggers just around November, December.
Why was it only during that time?
I think that's when they figured all the bootleggers were stocking up on liquor because they knew Christmas was coming, or they were making more money. But The Vice Squad, McCulloch and all those guys, and Puckett in the old days used to be the head of the Vice Squad. So they would always be watching the black bootleggers, and during the Fifth Street corridor. It was numerous joints around here,
And
and
what did the Fifth Street corridor consist of from where to
about
where?
a few blocks on the other side of Fifth, maybe over to Fourth or Third. So if you go from Fourth or Third down that way, you had the bootleggers. Female bootleggers was a lot down there. A lot of them were headed up by females who were trying to survive and make a living because of the poor wages you would probably get if you happen to be working as domestic or babysitting some kids for the white folks around. A lot of people were engaged in that, but it was very low paying and it was below a living wage. So a lot of entrepreneur black people and women and things just opened their houses, bought liquor at a lower price, sold it for a profit, and often, a lot of them had corn liquor and they had people distributing corn liquor. But I said earlier, people ask me, what about the prostitution up on Fifth Street? But I said earlier, people ask me, what about the prostitution up on Fifth Street? Now, like I say, I was up here a lot, and people knew that, and a lot of us were up here a lot. Every time the door opened, some of us were up here. But as far as I'm concerned, I didn't see any organized prostitution. People come up, excuse me, would come from out of town and ask me, well, where's all the ladies of the night at? I said, I could not tell you. I'm up here 24/7, but I don't know where they are. So it might have been some independent ladies, selling their bodies, but I never saw anybody up here who was referred to as a pimp. I didn't see any pimps in Lynchburg. I did not see any bawdy houses or whatever they call those. As far as I'm concerned, was non-existent.
And I think you said there really wasn't a necessity for it that you could see.
Yeah, because a lot of people, when they got a little buzz on them, you could probably attract a woman. You were young and good looking like I was. Your old woman might want me or something like that. So, so they probably ran the prostitute out of Lynchburg because if they were free. Well, as far as I'm concerned, some of the downside, besides the violence, and I'm going to talk about violence on film. I'm familiar with that. And it was also a good opportunity to sell a lot of drugs up here. So a lot of people on Fifth Street would come up here and get access. And back in the day, when I was coming up in the late 60s and 70s up here, it was a lot of weed sold. But I think near the end of my drinking career, which was in the mid 80s, I think crack has started coming into the community in the late 80s. It hit hard in Lynchburg. So people up here, dealing crack and
Up on Fifth Street?
because Fifth Street was where the people were, up here with the money. So this where you would come to try to sell some weed or something because, people are off from work, they had the paychecks, they would have drinking, and they're more liable to, buy some weed now that they got the buzz on. But
Do you think that was the cause of the violence, the infiltration
drunk,
of drugs?
no, prior to that, it was
Okay.
always violence on Fifth.
Why
And
was that?
people drunk.
Oh, maybe.
Yeah. People are in bootlegging joint. There's a whole lot of people up here bumping into each other. You might be sitting at the table with somebody's wife buying her some beer, or some women and their boyfriend shows up, and people they had gambling up here. It was people fighting over losing their money. It was the bootleggers and the nip joint owners. They were the law in that house, so those guys had guns. And some of them, that people know, I ain't called no names because it's friends of mine, but that some of them had killed people in the joint. So I've been in the joint where murders occurred while I was in there. And I was around there one night talking to a lady, and I knew her from way back, and she wasn't drinking, I was. And another guy came up with the same nickname that I got. In a few minutes, she had stabbed him to death around the joint down on Jackson. So it was people drinking out of control. It was a whole lot of people up here that didn't know each other, and for some reason, some people when they drink, some people get violent. So I've witnessed murders up here. I've been in joints and say, well, they just killed your buddy across the street. And, and so it was dangerous. And the people that ran the joints had to enforce, because you got a lot of drunks in there, you got a problem on your hands. So you got to enforce peace in your place too. So you can't have anybody up there disrupting your business. And a lot of those, like I said, a lot of those entrepreneurs, legal or illegal, had guns. And I've been around when many of them had to draw their guns and shoot.
Now, what happened to those people when if they kill someone at a?
Well, depending on what the circumstances were. Some people got away with self-defense. I remember I was up here and down on 12th Street. That was the second hot spot in Lynchburg, was 5th and down 12th. So a lot of people drink would go down 5th, go down on 12th. And they had entertainment and drink, but there's people that got killed down there sitting in the bar. And the proprietor had to shoot the killer that had killed one guy. So it could be very violent up here. And so people were often armed, and a lot of people were scared. I went to seminar, and a guy was going to walk across from out of town, was going to walk across town with me. And I told him I had to go through 5th, and it looked like the guy was scared to death.
I heard that.
Yeah, I was scared to go, because they had heard, a lot of people from out of town had heard bad things about 5th. As members of the white community had heard scary things happen on 5th, and people would come through 5th often just full of fear. And it was little riots up here on 5th Street that, I was around, and it was all type of disorder going on, and the police had to come up with riot gear, and we were talking about it was to be a revolution. Everybody was have drunk smoking weed. Said, when the revolution come? And I know when I saw them police dogs, that was the end of my revolution right there. I ran down the street with all home.
But in spite of all that, this street still seemed to flourish.
During the day, 5th Street was the home of doctors, and it was very safe up here during the daylight hours. You had your doctors, you had the Harrison Theater down the street. You had at least 3 doctors. You had Dr. Jackson, the dentist, up there next to 5th. So those were legitimate business people. And right off of 5th, that's why I used Cordy. You had Dr. Wesley up there, probably Dr. Wimbush, the black doctor. For some reason, it was the center of economic activity, as far as I knew, for black people in Lynchburg. And you had black people working down the foundry making plenty of money to send their kids to college, buy a home. And when they felt like they wanted a drink, the logical place to come was either 5th Street or 12th, and mainly 5th. So, but 5th Street, as far as I can tell, was the black people's reaction to Jim Crow. Like I said, you could not go in those white restaurants and sit down, and a lot of the old timers know you had to go to the window down the street on 5th, and the white people on it, and you order a hamburger. You stand in the window, they'll hand you the hamburger, and then you would just, go on about your business, but you weren't going in there sitting down.
Did white people ever come and patronize any of the black businesses?
Yeah, somehow. One guy was just sharing today. He'd come down on Jackson Street. He would be the only white guy in the bootleg joint. He'd be rolling around the floor fighting a black guy. And all of us would just hope he didn't knock our drinks over. And he'd come back every week. And he'd just be fighting. He was the only white guy in the joint. But I give him credit for courage, But every week he'd be right back again. If a black guy say something funny to him, he'd try to prove he wasn't scared. So they'd be rolling around the floor fighting. And a lot of people, were, if they see a white guy in there, they want to bum money off the white guy. And, there was a lot of people doing a lot of stealing in the bootlegging joint, because they know somebody was going to get drunk and pass out. So you had people getting robbed in there. It was probably all type of sexual transactions going on, hooking up with women, and women hook up with guys up in there. But like I say, I didn't see any organized. I never seen any pimps or any bawdy houses. I don't think during the 60s, 70s, during that year, that there weren't any, at least that I know of. And I know I was all over Lynchburg, so I don't think it was any of that going on. Everybody may have been an independent contractor or something like that, but no organization. But black people were all up on Fifth Street making money, sending the kids to college and things like that. And it was a good way to make money if you had a house and you attract some customers. You could make more than that little minimum pay you got working as a domestic. So a lot of women went into bootlegging to support their families and things. So it was a necessity. You needed money, and people knew that one way you can get money, and one way is selling weed or drugs. Now you can make some big bucks there. So a lot of people took advantage of that. A lot of people had nip joints, and some of them had food in there and things like that, cigarettes, chips. And you go in there, you shoot a little dice, you had the card game over across the street up on Fifth. You had Georgia Skin, which was a real fast way to lose all your money. So you had
What is that?
gamblers was cheating. Yeah, Georgia Skin was a card game. And a lot of people had Georgia Skin, and they had Coon Can, the main gambling game with Tonk. They had poker up here. So, you like gambling, you was in the right place up here.
Joints. So would you say that women were pretty much on an equal playing field with the men in most instances? They were running bootleg joints and things like that to support their families.
Yeah, a lot of them.
So do you think women were kind of, because you usually have that disparity between men and women, men being more dominant.
Yeah, yeah.
But in the
Well,
black community,
some of the women that I know that ran bootleg, they were quite assertive, and they probably might have had a husband or a boyfriend or something like that. So if you go, but the bootleg, the women that I know were making plenty of money, and then back in the 50s and 60s, one of them that I know, I interviewed her son, and he was a bootlegger then, but I asked him about his mother and I said, why did she ever go to jail? I said, she was wide open down there selling liquor, wine, feed, had drunks boarding in the house. So she had a big setup. She had the boarders that liked drinking, living under the same roof. She was fixing the lunch for work, so she was making money hand over fist. But I said, asked why didn't she go to jail? They said she was working for the previous Reverend Farwell's daddy. So his name always comes up in Lynchburg bootlegging. So say they were working for him. So he got his cut, and they stayed out of jail and just sold liquor to everybody and wine and everything else.
I'm sure there were a lot of under the table arrangements.
Yeah, it was. It was.
In the day.
And you had distributors in Lynchburg that distributed corn liquor from bootlegger to bootlegger, and corn liquor was cheaper than regular liquor. So, a lot of people spend times here and there, drinking corn liquor. I've tasted it. I never developed a taste for it. But everybody said it was good, so I just take their word for it. I just drinking it. I didn't know what was good or bad. A lot of people got sick drinking it.
Yeah. There's no telling what was.
Yeah, we didn't know what was in it, and they were mixing up their own stuff in Lynchburg.
So
It was a great place. It was a very renowned place, and we referred to it. All you had to do is say, "Man, where you heading?" I said, "I'm heading up on the block." So if I said I'm up on the block, they knew I was heading to Fifth. In Roanoke, they say I'm going up on the yard. They knew you were going up on Henry Street in Roanoke. So black people frequented it. Black people had their own businesses, more so than they do now. It was a lot of black entrepreneurs. It was doctors, officers, all them damn Fifth. But if you go through Fifth Street, those buildings are torn down. So they aren't there, period, now. So a lot of the entrepreneurs got older and things like that and faded out of business, and nobody replaced them. And I think they started trying to jack the rent up so you really couldn't make a decent profit. But for the young people, I'd say it was a lot of black pride affiliated with black business, with doctors, it was black movie theater owners, it was black pharmacists down the street. They had all type of little nice clubs up here, and a lot of people knew about a lot of their relatives. All you got to do is ask them, what was Fifth Street about? And they know, but it was also that underpinning of violence, people getting shot, people that got stabbed, if people just fighting and out of their mind, drunk, raising sand up here, the police presence all the time up here, throwing people in the wagon, and things like that. So it's got a very varied history, but and like I say, people used to dress up and come up on Fifth, and you knew you were going to the dance up to Elks, so you just be just clean as you could
Dressed
get.
to impress.
Yeah, so people were very sharp dressers. Black people always been sharp dressers because black role models were people like millionaire athletes, and they were all sharp. You see Joe Louis, him, they got on suits, and black entertainers, movie stars. Black people looked up to those people as being successful, and black people emulated them by dressing like they did. So often you might come up on Fifth, and people had on some three-piece sharkskin suit, had on old folks' comforts, gator shoes, box toe boots, and a Stetson hat. So black people, were just always, I ain't gonna say, I don't want to use the word all because I ain't speak for everybody, but a lot of the black people, young and old, were known to be sharp and was a matter of pride to be a sharp dresser. So people emulated those people. Oh, he's clean, he's clean, something like that. So it was a good thing. It gave people a time, people that didn't get in trouble, they were able to have a good time up on Fifth. They could drink a few drinks, go on home. And if they didn't, when Fifth Street closed, the joints would open. So you leave Fifth, you go right round the corner, right in the joint. That's all night long drinking. So, but Fifth Street had a lot of true entrepreneurs up there too. So, and those entrepreneurs, the doctors, the dentists, the pharmacists, they were all here together, and they operated those doctors. They operated in the day, and then at night, Fifth Street was more of a red light district and an entertainment area. Uh, I'm glad that I had the opportunity to be on Fifth back in that day, and I'm lucky I didn't get killed up here myself. Because it was violence up here. And some was perpetrated toward me. And things like that. And I had to defend myself. Because people. If you get a lot of people, young people up here drunk, somebody's gonna want to fight somebody. That's just the way it was. So if you went in the joint and everybody was drunk, if you got criminals and everything up in there, and ain't no law in the joint, so you might have to fight in there. So I'd have to defend myself.
So they didn't, like you said, the only security they had was the owner.
The owner, yeah, and he had some people working for him, like bartenders,
Bouncer or something.
pouring drinks. So he had some people in there with him, and so they'd help him. And then they had people, running the card game and the dice game. So all them working under the head guy to run the joint. So they would help him. But a lot of those guys that worked in there got murdered. They work in the main joint I attended. Somebody killed them guys. Well, soon they come out of the joint. A friend of mine was laying, I think he smacked a friend of mine in there playing cards. And my friend went on and got a shotgun and was down on Jackson Street behind L.I. cab stand. And as soon as one of the card guys that worked for the bootleg came out, my buddy jumped up, boom, hit him with a shotgun and killed him dead at the donut. Then another guy that worked there, a guy that I know seemed to be a nice guy, he killed one of the other guys that worked in there. So it was a dangerous job to have because you might go to jail during the raid, you might get killed up there with somebody in there drunk. So it could be very dangerous in there drunk. And like I say, a person with good sense would started avoiding those places. So you had to be a show enough drinker to keep going up in there after somebody just got killed the night before. So it was people, that was just a
But
way
still
way of
people
life.
went.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. You see a lot of people in there, but you wouldn't see anybody with good sense in there after murder. And I ain't have good sense, so you might see me in there drinking. But a lot of people, if somebody got murdered, common sense would tell you, don't go up in there. Somebody just got killed.
So these are mainly the bootleg joints.
Yeah, we
Traffic,
call them nip joint.
nip joints.
Yeah, that's what I think we call them bootleg joint in Lynchburg, but they're really speakeasy, might be a better term, or nip joint. And then so there's a lot of them, and most people in Lynchburg knew a lot of them because they were Lynchburgers, a family. They had family members. So everybody knew, who, was selling a little liquor.
And these nip joints, people lived in these houses during the I mean during the day, and then they were
Yeah,
joints
some
that.
of them, and some of the bootleggers locked up. It was just variables, and some of them locked up the joint and went home.
Okay, so
Yeah,
okay,
and opened the joint when they were doing their business, but lived somewhere
live
else.
somewhere
Yeah.
else. But some did
Yeah,
live in
some
the
lived there,
homes.
yeah, or
Okay.
slept in there overnight. Most of them had some beds in there. So some of them would sleep, some of them would lock up and go home. So it was just a way of life, and after hours, if you out partying after hours, eventually that would seem like a good place to go. So
What would you like to see happen in Fifth Street? I know what you think is going to happen. What would
I
you
don't know. I
like to
like
see?
to see some black people buy some property. So you got a lot of big time black property people in Lynchburg now. And I know the Elks is an organization. I heard them say they were going to buy up some of it, but the way it's going now, they got a big white Pizza Hut down the street down there. They got Lucky's. It's mainly run by some foreigners out of New York now, and so you got a lot of little, but you see every now and then you see a black business down there. But as
There's a
far,
vegan restaurant
mhm.
down there. So next
I
to
like to see that statue of T.D. Thornhill put up in the roundabout. So some people were raising money for that, but I think one of the head guys died that was raising the money. So I don't know where they are with that. But I don't really wouldn't like to see a lot of rundown joints like it used to be up here. I like to see it be a upscale, modern looking place. Because where people tell me every city you go to, if it's Martin Luther King Boulevard or something, it's a rundown, crime-ridden area. So I think the crime is no longer up this way like it used to be. Cause and that's a good thing. So it's a cut down in black crime in this particular area. So, but if it was still open, there would be more crime up here, and the police would be up here several times a day, particularly on the weekend, arresting somebody for drunk or something like that. So, but I'm hoping some black business or institutions will come up here. But they've got the community health access center. That's a valuable thing, right in the middle of the black neighborhood to keep a lot of young black people from running to the emergency room because they don't have insurance. So you're almost inclined if your child gets sick to visit the second most business ER in the state in Lynchburg because they'll accept you. And I like to see them have more medical facilities for black people. Maybe a big Y down there with a swimming pool. Some good things that positive for black kids to go to, like boys and girls clubs, things like that. But maybe a part of the museum, I'd like to see that extend to down on Fifth. But it's gonna cost money to buy on Fifth Street, I believe.
I think the prices are going
Yeah,
up
so
now.
it's gonna be something like gentrification, and we've heard about that happening in other cities, and so I really don't want to see that happen. Yeah, I want to see, but as people start building more, then other businesses will set up near them down here, and I hope I see that before I'm gone because I've seen a lot on Fifth Street, and when it was mainly it was negative. Uh, a lot of it was, murders. A lot of it was cutting, stabbings, all type of stuff. People sick, drunk out their mind, act like a fool. So I've seen enough of that on Fifth. So I like to see a positive turnaround on Fifth
I
Street.
do have.
Act a fool for most of the time. I think
But you,
I
but
think I
now,
stabbed about 7 people. I had been stabbed. I'd have been shot, cut, drinking, in jail, out of jail, but I stopped, and so I I was valedictorian over community college in 1988, and that was an honor, which automatically made me the top minority student. When I came out of Lynchburg College, I was the top history student as a junior and as a senior. When I graduated summa cum laude over there and got a degree in history, I went on to the master's program over there and graduated with a master's degree from University of Lynchburg, agency counseling. And I had a lot of good positive energy when I wasn't drinking all the time or showing my butt or turning things up. I had a lot of positive energy that I could devote to trying to get a career. And I served as a counselor for 30 years. I'm still a counselor. I'm still a licensed professional counselor. I'm still a certified substance abuse counselor. I'm still on the payroll over at Addiction Allies. I worked at Pathways Treatment Center for 30 years as a counselor, working with alcoholics and addicts, which allowed me to give back and things like that. And I was just down in City Jail last night, no charge. I'm just down there sharing spiritual strength and hope, trying to encourage people that there's a spiritual way of life without alcohol, without drugs. It's more positive and it's accessible to you. I was down at Blue Ridge Jail the night before the Tuesday night, and I went down there and was sharing some of the same stuff about when you get out of jail, if you drinking and drugging, you just stayed on in there because you're just on a merry-go-round. You get out and drink, and you're right back in jail again. So that's the message I like to share when I go somewhere about recovery from alcoholism, recovery from drug addiction, how that's possible. And I know a lot of people who are in recovery, and my date is, the last time I had a drink was April 12th, 86. That's the last time I had anything. My cousin asked me, "Cuz, you mean you ain't drink a beer?" That's right, I ain't had a sip of beer. I ain't had a toke of joint or nothing like that. My life is wonderful. And I'm positive. I've got a lot of positive people in my life that I love and care about. And it's all because I'm working a strong recovery program, but mainly turn it over to God and let God's will be done in my life. And that is just the way I live. I can still talk a lot of old crazy stuff, but I'm basically as sober as I can be and engaged in a lot of positive things in life.
Hello, how you doing today? My name is Glenwood Wheaton, and I am Fifth Street. I love going up on Fifth Street because we had somewhere to go on the weekends, and this day and time, Fifth Street is not the same as then. They used to have walking police on Fifth Street. We had restaurants, pool halls, dance halls. Everything was so beautiful because we had somewhere to go. Well, people, a lot of people, we'll stand on the street, the street stayed full of blacks all the
So
time.
that
Yeah.
was okay, just hanging
But
around on the
yeah,
street.
just as long as you didn't get no argument and you wasn't drinking in public or anything like that. But all the time I was up there, it went nice and smooth. And then the guys, they had nice vehicles, they'd shine them up, have them pretty. Like I said, we dressed real nice. Like the men that they don't respect women like we did back then. I see them on Facebook and stuff, call them nasty names, and stuff like that, and then they walk around. They don't care how they dress. They just think they cool. To me it look like they got on work clothes, but I bet you them clothes cost a lot where they're not. But I can respect their style, but to me, it's just that, if you walk around with your pants hanging down or something like that, back then, you'll be in trouble because, we would say something, but like I say, it's the style now. In the clubs, like the sportsman club, that was a good place to go. For some of the people, like a lot of people say it was a rowdy place. That's where all the country people went, or the people that like to fight and so forth. But that was just every now and then because they had nice band up there.
Up at the Sportsman Club?
Yeah.
What were some of the bands that played up there?
The Jawas played up there, the Vista Tones, Mala Vista. What was them other ones? I said the Jawas, Soul Brother Plus. And I came, so Dennis Saunders, he played on one, and because he texted me back today, was saying, talking, he said a little bit of things about Fifth Street, and about the good times up there. At a young age, like I was 14, and I went to Connecticut to pick tobacco, so I could come home, buy my own clothes and dress real nice. That's all we could. We weren't supposed to be on Fifth Street now, but we 14. We just stood outside, and then most of the country boys went to Connecticut to make money during the summer from 14 years old up to 18 years old. And the guys from the city, they went to Atlantic City and worked in the restaurants up there to make their money to come back here. And and all of us just dress nice. That's the first thing we do when we get back is go down to this place called Famous
Oh, yeah.
downtown and buy our clothes. Then we come up here and get sharp for the ladies and go, like I said, go up to the Elks. You know, the Elks, we couldn't get in there until we was about 16. We really ain't supposed
Oh,
to.
they allowed you in that early? At that-
No, no. Most time, we'll sneak in.
Oh.
Yeah, sometimes we'll sneak in, and sometimes we'll get caught, and they say, you ain't supposed to be in here, and they'll send you back out. But if you sneak in and you was cool, then he'll start, letting you come
They
in.
let you stay.
Right.
Yeah.
But I lost 2 years, a year when I went to Vietnam.
What made you decide? Were you drafted or did you
I,
decide to go?
I volunteered,
Oh.
yeah, because I was working on the farm in the cornfield, and I wasn't getting paid a dime, and I knew Daddy couldn't send me to college, like I said. So I said, well, I'm going to service. I'm getting away from here, And I didn't really want to get no job. I wanted to be a military man anyhow.
You weren't scared to go? It was in the middle of the war.
Nope.
Didn't
No,
scare you at all?
no. But I called myself thinking that if I volunteer, they might not send me to Vietnam. But
Oh.
but that's the first. I looked like I was the first one to go. But to me, it made me think I was a tough guy then. By doing that. Uh, like I would come home after I got from Vietnam, walk on down Fifth Street with my uniform on, and back then, the guys was proud of us, even though war was going on, but still the women looked up to us, So
I bet.
yeah, and like I said, Fifth Street was crowded. Then people both sides of the sidewalk. Be loaded down with people, and we had a little chicken stand on the side where they sold chicken after 2.
And this would have been what year? I mean,
Uh,
years.
th- all this is between 64 to about 70. What about 72 or 73 when the elk started slowing down? Even though I lost my girlfriend, somebody else had her when I got back.
So that changed, huh?
Uh,
That changed.
yeah, well, I already knew that while I was in Vietnam, so I kind of, I hurt more over there than I did when I came back to Fifth Street. But it changed a lot. But it like everything the blacks had that we have lost it now. 'Cause, we don't have nowhere to go like we used to.
Very different now.
Yeah, completely different, and it just all spread it out. But you might not want to put this in on it, but I always sometimes Martin Luther King, some of it might have been good for what he did in some ways. In some ways, it kind of, to me, kind of made people kind of separate the blacks, separate from the blacks.
Because of integration?
Yeah, because of integration. Yeah, yeah. Sometimes cause they always got the saying, when in Rome, do as the Romans do. So when in black, do as the blacks do instead. Somebody might get in a fight. They live over in Daniels Hill, and then somebody over in maybe over in what you call that side on the other side of 12th Street.
College? College Street?
Yeah, maybe College Park or somewhere like that. College, and
I mean, College Hill.
right, College Hill, right. And they might get in a fight, and they'll go to tell these two brothers about it, and then next thing you know, he got all his people. They be lined up from Daniels Hill, and both of them walking out front.
So there was a rivalry?
And then the other ones, Daniels Hill come this way, and College Hill be coming that way. And then before
What happened?
they'll get there brawling, everybody out there brawling, everything, fighting, and next thing you know, the cops come, and then they'll break up and start running and so forth. But I ain't call no names, but no, I'm not. Yeah, but them was good days. Wasn't nobody cutting or fighting,
People fought
shooting. Men,
like men.
young or women can fight too.
Women would be fighting too.
Oh yeah, you had the women and the men, all them. The neighborhood. I used to stand back and look at it, and it was something amazing to me. But I won't get involved because I said I ain't getting up in here and might get cut or beat on or
And what would
stomped.
they be fighting about again?
Huh?
What would they be fighting about again?
Somebody they might be fighting because because this guy might be going with this girl over in Daniels Hill, and then they don't like it, or it might be some money deal, or
And it would all culminate
right,
at
yeah,
Fifth Street.
yeah,
Is that kind of like the center?
yeah,
I
yeah,
guess it was.
yeah.
Yeah.
But it normally happen, later on in the night, around about 1 o'clock in the morning. I guess by the time everybody getting drunk, or they'll have intermission at the Elks, or either the sportsman, and everybody come out, crowd, and be standing on Fifth Street. And like I said, it was beautiful. And now they have changed the sidewalks, and you don't have no plans to even open up a nice restaurant. Where nobody's be coming now anyhow. Well, it was prostitution, just like it was bootleg joints.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and after 2 o'clock.
In the morning.
Yes,
Okay.
Then we'll go to the bootleg
Is that
joint.
when the clubs and all closed up?
Yes,
At 2 o'clock?
yeah.
Oh, okay.
Then everybody go up to the bootleg joints. And most of the bootleg joints came in about in the late 70s. But that's when I
So they
started
didn't
going.
exist before then?
Maybe they did,
Uh-huh.
but I was too young, really
Oh.
too young, because they was selling whiskey and like I said. But I think that the house was right across from the sportsman, the whole house.
Oh, okay.
Still mind me sweat, but that's a word like everything else, but prostitution.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, it's interesting. So I guess maybe this particular person didn't want to tell me about it, but
But maybe he won't. No. Yeah.
because he told me there was no prostitution up on anywhere near Fifth Street. I'm like, okay.
Now, so do we think any prostitution was up there back in the 80s and
I'm talking about
70s?
prostitution from the beginning of history.
I'm talking about up and down Fifth Street. It was prostitution then.
But
I think that the house was right across from the sportsman. The whole house.
okay.
Still mind me sweat, but that's a word like everything else, but. Cause like every Easter, now that's when everybody really get fly and go up to the Elks. They have Roy Seal, Clarence Carter, or
So they had, who else did they have up there?
I was trying to think of today, but I think it was the Roy Seal, Clarence Carter that the women, men can't get in for the women because they be come out of church dressed and go right on up there to every Easter. That was really beautiful.
Oh, yeah.
And we don't have it now. Yeah, the bus station was a nice hangout too.
And what buses ran through there?
Uh,
What kind of buses?
but the Greyhound and Trailway, and the Greyhound, that's the one that would stop. As long as you stand on the side of the road and wave them down.
Oh, they pick you up
Yeah,
anywhere.
that's how a lot of. Well, that's how I used to get uptown. To get on Fifth Street. Just wave the bus down, and they come right up to the bus station. I get off. I ain't got my clothes dirty or nothing. Texas Inn, on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, mostly Friday and Saturday nights, after 2 o'clock, the blacks all go down there. It'd be packed down there.
At Texas Tavern?
Texas Tavern, because that was the only one. Well, a lot of people liked that food then because the only place up here that was open be the chicken place. 'cause all the ones that sold beer, they closed down with serving food also.
So there was no conflicts down at the Texas Tavern?
Yeah, yeah, there might have been a few with that the fights be in there, but I never saw anything down there. But somebody told me one time they were serving through a side window, but
Yeah, I was wondering about that.
yes, but I don't remember that. Well, the only thing I can tell the young people, they need to, instead of taking their money, trying to sell drugs or trying to buy all these guns and expensive clothes, get a little schooling behind, or either take up a trade or something and go to school and do their trade, and you can make big money. There's a lot of infrastructure needs redone, and those guys, it might be hard work, and it might not be sitting behind a desk, but that's where the money is out there. On these people that want to be so pretty, let them go ahead and stay over there. You go and make your money, and you come home, you rest, you sleep, you don't have no worries or anything. Just wait on that big paycheck, come, whatever day you get paid. And that's a whole lot of you live longer, and you'll have a clean record if you just go to work instead of selling drugs. Go to a trade school. That's right. That's what I can say. Go to a trade school. Because you don't want to go to college, so, but now there's a lot of trade schools coming up. To me, Fifth Street is just another street now. Yeah, I can just see its legacy, and it's a place where people could really meet, and then go home, and and get ready to go to work the next week. But they don't enjoy their stuff.
So it was a sense of community that we don't have anymore.
Right, that's right. We don't have it at all. And the guys, they out there fighting and shooting and everything. They don't have no pool hall to go to, 'cause they might come around that and act crazy, but normally they got a security guard or somebody around there. Fifth Street was our place for entertainment instead of just laying around home all the time. That causes marriages to be broken up quicker than it does for the.
But laying around the house?
Mm-hmm. Because so you argue, it seems like you in each other's way all the time. And
So Fifth Street was an escape.
yep, you go to Fifth Street and you can't carry your wife up to the Elks, or or you go by yourself and say you're going out. Mm-hmm. Yeah. But that can lead to trouble too, because you might find you a nice girl, and then you're really in trouble there. We didn't get our money from standing on the street selling drugs. It wasn't no thing as
So the
drugs.
values were different. Back
Right. Yeah, and see, that's another thing. While everybody talking about doing for the kids, like during the summer, how can't they fix some type of program for these kids to make money during the summer? To have school, after school jobs or something like that. And I think, that would help with it also.
Oh, the bands that was here then? Oh, my goodness, we had so many, and they were so good. It was generally local talent, local youth talent that came out of Dunbar High schools and the different schools around town. We had the bands like the Jivers, Fets and the Continentals. There were just so many, and they were allowed to play. We didn't have any major place for them to practice and whatever, so they generally practiced in each other's houses and stuff like that. There was a restaurant, a laundromat on the corner of 5th and Harrison Street, 5th and Madison, I'm sorry. And the lady would have the laundry in the daytime, but she'd allow the local youth groups to come in and practice at night. Yes, yes. There was, I can't remember all the names now that you're asking, but people like Dawson Smith was on there. Robert Tanner played on there. Aubrey Barber played on there. Um, L.A. Brown. It was just so many that today when you look at them, it makes you smile. I wish that they could get together again today and put on one big more show, one more hurrah, you know?
I started playing music at R.S. Payne Elementary School and continued playing in the Dunbar High School marching band and symphonic bands. After graduating, I got a chance to play with big band leader Count Basie at Washington and Lee College in Lexington, Virginia. After that, I attended Juilliard Music School in New York, but couldn't afford to stay. After returning home, I was selected to lead and manage the Gyros Band and show. I was able to secure a contract playing the college circuit tours throughout Virginia and the Carolinas. We also played locally in the clubs and schools. The time came when the band set out for a record deal. After trying different studios with no success, I decided to establish my own recording studio and subsequently Megatone Records from my basement. The Lynchburg Record Company produced songs like Sweet Memories, Tell Me Your Name, and others that are played on Mad Lad's radio station today. I'm still looking for a national label deal. I was able to secure a chance at All Platinum Records in New Jersey. The name of the band was changed to The New Sounds, but the deal didn't go well and the band members lost interest. I decided to go it alone on a small deal at Scepter Records in New York. From there, I released a song entitled I Don't Know If I Can Make It, and I'm proud to say that that song landed on Billboard's Top 100 Soul.
Because that's where everybody congregated. When people got off from work at the foundries and places like that, they came to Fifth Street on Fridays and spend their money. When after school, the older people that could afford to go up there enjoyed going to the restaurants and getting fish sandwiches or just sitting up chilling to see who's out there and whatever. It was someplace that you seen people you generally didn't see during the week, you know, because people were working. I mean, everybody was working. Who wasn't working was going to school, you know. And so even when you go in the restaurant, they're working, you know, so.
But on the weekends, once
Oh,
that 5
yes.
o'clock time clock
Yes,
got punched,
yes,
Fifth
yes.
Street was the place
Fifth Street
people
was
go
the
to
place
kinda
people.
just let their hair down, relax, shake off everything from the week.
Oh gosh, yes. I remember many times meeting my father in the restaurants up there, and that's when Fifth Street, a lot of the business made more money because the foundry got paid on Fridays. So they knew that on Fridays we're going to get at least 50 or 60 guys coming in here from there, you know. The women were there to meet the guys and whatever, so you got a big clientele and patronage on Fifth Street on Fridays, you know. So yeah, it played a major role with introducing each other to each other too, you know. Like I said, we weren't allowed to go up and hang out when I was a child. So when I turned 18 years old, Fifth Street was the first place I ran to, you know. I mean, I can go to the Sportsman Club, I can go in the Elks, you know. I can go sit in the restaurant. We weren't even allowed to sit in the restaurants because I was raised on a time when children were seen and not heard, and you didn't hang out with grown folks, you stayed in your place. And so, but when I turned 18 and old enough, yeah, I'm on Fifth, you know.
Tell me about the sports.
But basically, I remember the Sportsman Club. They had some roughnecks coming in from different areas, and they had
Was there a rivalry? Because you got people, I guess, living in different parts of Lynchburg that would all converge on Fifth Street.
Yes, but they were. This is called the City of Seven Hills. Diamond Hill, Ten Bridge Hill, which is our facility here is located on White Rock Hill, but they all converged on Fifth Street on Fridays and Saturdays.
Fridays and Saturdays.
Yes, in particular. And Sunday was church day. Oh, people would fight and argue like most people do, to some extent. But the bouncers at the Sportsman Club, they did not play. If you got to acting up in there, they'd put a blow or two on your head.
Oh, goodness.
they would shut it down right away. Then Elks was a more sophisticated spot because they demanded you had good attire, you dressed proper and everything. That was part of their development for you to come into place. And if you didn't, I remember they used to get on us all the time, the guys that ran the Elks. You straighten your tie up, this, that, and the other. That was more bourgeois. Bourgeois, yes.
Yes.
The crown jewel of Fifth Street. It was the crown jewel of Fifth Street, a place where people like Jackie Wilson, James Brown, Roy C. Yes, famous people came to the Sportsman. I mean, but they came not only to the Sportsman, but they came to Lynchburg. I don't know why. I don't know what Lynchburg drawed them to, or Fifth Street drawed them to in particular. But yeah, they came to Lynchburg and played. They weren't allowed to stay in a lot of the hotels and whatever. Chubby Checker came at one time. From what I can recall hearing, he got tired and ended up getting a nap on the table in the funeral home over there, Carl Henderson's funeral home and stuff. So many famous people came here. They played at Fifth Street and then they played downtown. The show was cut short, but they would end up having a mini show in the parking lots. Yes, yes. So a lot of the famous people and people who were coming up, trying to get famous, started, well, didn't start, but played at the Sportsman. I was so hurt when they tore the Sportsman Club down because that building meant so much to so many people, not just because of it was a dance hall or whatever, but you felt like you were maturing and growing because you went to the Sportsman, and you learned a lot of social lessons from hanging out with those people, you know. A lot of the lessons I've learned today came from talking to my elders and older people and hanging out with older people. So, yeah, the Sportsman, God, they had 2 levels on the top floor, and I remember the band played on the first level and whatever, kind of dark. I used to sneak in. I shouldn't tell everybody, but I did. But I did. I couldn't afford to get in. And Mr. Clarence, Clem Stevens was the manager, him and Mr. George Harris again. And we weren't allowed to go in. You know, you had to be a certain age. I can't remember if it was 18 or 21 now. But we would sneak in at intermission or whatever and try to stay hidden in the dark or whatever. But depending on what music came on, then, okay, Mr. Harris, I'm up here, you know. And he's soon going to take you out. But anyway. Oh, the Sportsman. I preferred the Sportsman more than I did the Elks. The Elks was still there. The Elks is still there. It's a social club that was also, they gave dances and whatnot. But it was more for a subdued crowd. You know, yeah. And I never was subdued. When I spoke with Jean Carter not long ago, and I was so glad to speak with her. I hadn't spoke with her since they closed the restaurant on Fifth. I asked,
The owner of Pisces.
yes. Her sister used to own another restaurant up Fifth Street next door to where Lewis's restaurant was. So the Carters have been on Fifth Street a long, long time. And I asked Jean, when I did see her, when they was closing the restaurant up, I asked her about it, you know, why are you closing your restaurant? And she said, when your generation went in, it was time for me to close. Because the youth didn't know the history and how valuable these places was in so many of our lives. And so I think at the time things was going on otherwise also. But the Pisces was next door to Bishop Baby Stokes Church. And I remember Bishop Baby Stokes. He was a minister who came here many years ago and decided to make Lynchburg his home, which I understand. And so he had a church right there next to the Pisces, of all places. And I remember standing, they were side by side, and I remember standing trying to decide which door I was going in. And the angel on this shoulder said, you need to go knock on that church door. And the devil on this one said, Candace Staten is playing over here. And I won't tell you which one won. But anyway.
I know. I already know.
But yes, so it was just nice. You could sit in the Pisces. We just sit in the Pisces in the door or in the windows and watch people going up and down the street. And it was an outlet, you know, for people my age at that time. You know, we didn't have very many other places to go, you know. It wasn't like we had a mall that we can go hang out and walk around or whatever. You know, Fifth Street was our mall. But we go in there and just chill out and relax and shoot the breeze with Gene and whoever else was coming in, eat some great food. But it was just so much fun. It was just great. I went by there the other day, and the place is crumbling. I think a lady bought it, and I don't have no idea what she's going to do with it. But I reached and I grabbed a pinch of the brick that was breaking off there and carried it home, you know.
When did the Pisces, as we know it, close?
I don't even know if I was in Lynchburg after that. I'm thinking I came back here and
'Cause for some reason I was thinking it was still open. Maybe like in the 90s?
I know it was open in the 80s.
Okay.
It might have been open in the early 90s.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it was open in the early 90s, you're right. But I definitely know it was open in the 80s. I remember going to Fifth Street Church. I can't remember his name. He was a deacon at the church. And kids back in those days, we had church parents, you know. So no matter what church you go in, the church parents will take care of you, and you was always welcome. In fact, there was many church women in the community. Yes, takes a village to raise a child. And the many women in the black community would gather up other people's children and take them to church on Sunday. You know, and then they'd come back through Fifth Street and stop at Reed's Pharmacy or Barbecue Grill or the Silver Slipper and get them an ice cream treat before delivering them back to their parents. Yes. And I remember going up to Fifth Street Church. I never have been to Fifth Street Church to service because I went to the 3rd and Jackson Street Church for service. But I remember this deacon used to always come up there and give me little odd jobs to do. Like sweep this. I didn't know anything about sweeping anything, but I did what I could with the little broom, and he'd give me a dime or a quarter or whatever, and I'd go across the street and get me 2-cent, two cookies for a penny. Things were so much cheaper and then, or bubble gum or whatever, you know. And for us, that's all we needed, you know. 2-stick popsicle or bubble gum or RC cola, you know. Didn't take much back in those days. Nowadays, it takes a lot more than that.
It was a much simpler time, right?
Oh, yes,
Yeah.
yes. And I think simpler in many cases is better. I have my own ideas, what I think about getting what you ask for, because sometimes I think we get more than what we ask for. And I think in many cases in the African American culture, in the community, we ask for a lot and we got more than what we expected. You know. But I missed that part of that camaraderie of the deacon coming out of the churches. Again, the churches had, I'm not sure that was his only job in there, is being a deacon, because I also saw him hanging around with a lot of the African American leaders at this time, like O.C. Caldwell. I can't even remember the names of many of them, but he was very friendly with a lot of the deacons. So I'm quite sure he did a little bit more than just deacon and sweep the church, you know. But it was so wonderful having him around, you know, especially coming up as a child. Those grown people held our hands and led us into adulthood. And we've learned so many lessons from that time that we carry with us down that I think in many cases children of today don't have.
You know, we dressed to impress.
Why was that important, you think?
Part of the culture
Because
upbringing.
it's not so much now. What changed?
What changed? Time, drugs, whatnot, all the evil and ugly stuff just took hold. And these younger people just went in another direction. They wouldn't have survived coming along when I did, because people didn't mind doing a disciplinary type move on you. God knows I got enough. And my older brother was worse than me. So It was strong disciplinary. And if you acted up, everybody in the neighborhood would partake in your getting yourself together.
Yeah. So
We're the community.
it was a village.
It took a village.
I don't think we came from single family homes.
Okay.
And the reason I say that is because even though there might have been only one parent in the house, we had parents up and down the street. We had parents across the corner, around us. Our teachers was our parents. Everybody was our parent. And at this time, you trusted everybody with your children because a lot of the things that's happening with kids today wasn't happening then. So you could do something as a child on Fifth Street at 4 o'clock, and your mama would know it at 4:05, you know. Or Miss Green is going to take care of it right here and tell your mama that she did, you know. So we had many parents. It take a village. I keep coming back to that because I have a Facebook page where I use that in the ending of my title. It takes a village. And I say we're villagers, but we're also the children. Because as well as teach, you also should be open to learning.
Do you think that village is not as powerful or strong? Or does it even exist now?
Not anymore. And I haven't seen it. I can only hope that somewhere it may have a glimmer or flicker of. I don't think anything finally dies until people forget it. I think even community and villages have a chance to be reborn if the desire is there. And if people keep remembering, if you keep recalling, if you keep telling the story. In Africa, they called the people griots that told the stories. And they had a tradition of each generation passing the stories down to the next generation. And from that was a lot of knowledge shared and spread. So I think even Fifth Street, even today, it looks like it's gone, but I don't think it's gone. I think Fifth Street had a soul, and I think the soul of Fifth Street is still there, and I think it will come back. I don't profess to say it's going to look like it did when I was a child, but I think Fifth Street is going to come back, and I think the soul of the black community lives on. You may notice that many people move into areas and whatever, they don't stay very long, you know. When I wrote an article about the area that I grew up in, around Fifth Street, my family's been in Lynchburg since the mid-1800s. And my family's also been on Timber Chill since the 1900s. So if I talk a lot about Fifth Street or Timber Chill, it was home, you know, it was home. So like I said, I had said in the article that I'm waiting for the next generation to come back and bring that soul back to fruition again. Because right now, the diamonds that holds the community together, places like Legacy Museum and Old City Cemetery, even the Yoda Center, there are still diamonds in the black community, and as long as these places are there, the stories will continue. And one day it will come back. I can only hope. I hope it's not need that'll bring it back, because most of the time we unify under a banner of need. I hope that we can unify this time under a banner of desire and unification, because I think we're so much stronger together, you know. And I may or may not see it, but I just hope and pray that if I don't get to see it, somebody will remember and tell the story of Fifth Street. And
the importance of the churches on Fifth Street. And I tell you the truth, black churches, period. I don't care where they were. They was your mother, your father, your uncle, or whatever you want to call them. They took care of you. That's right. Now, we had a lady over on Timber Chill named Maggie Dennis. She was married. I forget her married name. She's in some of this paper too. She went into the neighborhood. This was every Sunday before she went to church. She didn't care what street you lived on or what. She got up all of the children encouraged them to go Court Street Baptist Church. I don't care if it was 50, 75. Maggie encouraged those children to Sunday school. She came back home and changed into her church clothes. She never missed, she may miss a little bit of Sunday school, but church, Maggie Dennis was there every Sunday. But she would carry them children to Court Street Church. And not only her, others was doing it too. Because if you say my child is not going to church, oh yeah, child going to church. You may not go, but that child was going to church.
Okay, Jericho Mission is one that I can talk about. I can't recall exactly the day that he came here. I know it was Reverend Dunning and opened up Jericho Mission Church. And at the time when he came, this must have been, I think my kids were born and grown. It wasn't that far long ago. I can't remember the year. I'm sorry. I do have it on my page, but I don't have it in the head. But he opened up this place, and I didn't know who he was. Thank you. I didn't have any idea who he was. And part of the gossip at the time was that he was somebody from out of town, just come in here to Lynchburg to open up some storefront church, use what he could of us, and then leave. Boy, were we in for a surprise. Reverend Dunning took Jericho Baptist Church, that little storefront church on 5th between Madison and Harrison, and he has become a diamond in the Lynchburg black community. That church has become a diamond. He started off, I think, with the food closets and the clothes closets and the Christmas closets. He contributed so much to the neighborhood. Yes, yes. The children would go up there and he would get baskets, Easter, no matter what. He was always doing and donating and supporting the community at large. There was another church, other than Jericho. I spoke about Bishop Baby Stokes Church. There was another church on Fifth Street. Fifth Street Baptist has played so many parts in socially, civically, you name it. Fifth Street had a hand in it.
Because Fifth Street Baptist Church is probably where a lot of people met during the Civil Rights Movement, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes, as far as I'm aware. I think the march on Fifth Street Baptist and also Court Street Baptist, those are the two major players, I think, when it comes to the Civil Rights era. Jackson Street Church, Jackson Street Methodist Church, played a major part in the education of black Americans here in Lynchburg. They sponsored and financed normal schools for freed black people to learn and be able to educate other black people, whatever. Jackson Street Church, they also bought and used the White Rock Cemetery as a burial ground for black people. Even the cemeteries were segregated at the time, you know. I don't know what they would have did. But anyway, but Jackson Street even, and they played such a major part, and like I said, in the education aspect of Lynchburg. Yeah. I can't at this moment recall all Jackson Street did do, but I would suggest that anybody interested in learning the education and how black people had to climb a ladder to get education, how we virtually had to fight for and pay for an education before it became public, Jackson Street Church would be the place to start.
Did the churches work together?
Yes. At one time in the 1990s, they had something called Project 90. Project 90 was a thought or an idea of building the economic awareness in the black communities. It was also an idea to start a credit union for black people. It was all about building the communities financially and making us more self-reliant and self-reliable, so we could define ourselves. Today is Ujima, which means building and economically building and using the resources at hand to take care of yourself, so you don't have other people define you. you can define yourself. Um, Power, it is what it'll also take. Unity, yes, but power, and power only comes from unity, and unity comes from power. So the churches band together in the 1990s to create Project 90. The black churches in Lynchburg, definitely. Um, Jackson Street Church, West End, the church that was in West Lynchburg Baptist Church, Fifth Street Baptist Church, Jericho, no, Jericho wasn't here at the time, Court Street Baptist Church, all the churches in Lynchburg that I can think of or that you can think of probably band together, the preachers band together, and yes, yes. They went to Washington, D.C. It was not just in Lynchburg. This organization was not just a Lynchburg organization. It was a Virginia organization. So they had preachers and ministers and leaders from Richmond, Roanoke, and everything that congregated here or met here or held meetings here to see how they can do about building this organization to embetter the Black American communities, so we could own our own. Yes, on our own. So we had that organization. I'm quite sure that there are other organizations that did the same thing, but I'm aware of that one in particular because I wonder whatever happened to it. Fifth Street got a bad reputation. Um, I don't know where the rumors started or how did. Yeah. Once upon a time, well, not that long ago, but when I say once upon a time, it was less than 60 years ago. People claim to be, the white community claimed to be afraid to come through Fifth Street. Um, they would roll up their windows from what I hear when they come through Fifth Street. Or SWAT team would come through to run people off of Fifth Street. Fifth Street was supposed to be the worst place in the world you could be. You don't want to go through Fifth Street. I lived in this community for so many years. Yes, there was arguments. Yes, there was fights. We're human. So we did have our issues and our arguments. But there was no mass violence or harm done to anybody. Adams Motor Company, for instance, I use him, had a car lot on the corner of Fifth and Federal, and he had a chain link fence. During the civil rights movement, when everybody else was rioting and breaking in store windows and stuff in other areas, and I'm not judging them either, but Adams Motor Company had a chain link fence no higher than that to protect his brand new cars. And he was one of the louder voices about why we would name it the Martin Luther King Boulevard. And I wanted to tell him so many times, your car, your brand new car stayed there without a scratch. If black people was what you want us, what you claim we are, I don't think any of your cars would have survived us, you know. But we didn't. We didn't do any of these things because that's not the people that we are, you know. But Fifth Street, like I said, it earned a reputation. A lot of that reputation also came from the generations to follow, because people from out of town that don't know our culture or is not aware of the type of people we are came from out of town and thought that this was an easy mark or easy place that you can come in and sell your wares, you know, illegal wares. We were never that kind of people. We had sectional towns, even in the black communities, where we just didn't go in or whatever, only because we didn't want to. But we fought. We didn't try to harm anybody. We didn't try to kill anyone. We didn't try to harm anybody. We had arguments and we had fights. Human beings do that. But we always respected your right to your opinion or your right to live, your right to be, your right to own, your right to do what you can do. We didn't begrudge anybody coming up because we're going to know that you're going to reach back with your other hand and pull us up behind you. It's coming back. And I hope that my wish is not just a hollow wish of a senior citizen and a citizen of Lynchburg and Fifth Street. I hope that the powers that be and those people who hold more power today than they ever did have, spool together, put your money together, Open up that black restaurant. I miss the soul food. I miss the chitlins and the fried pork chops and the chicken. I miss that. It's nice to go to McDonald's, but I want some home cooking. So pool your money together. Support Fifth Street. Don't let it die. Don't let the winds of time cover up this history. It's just too important.